What happens when we click a button? When we have typed in some address in the browser and clicked enter and it starts loading. Let's get into detail. We have a browser, Internet Explorer, Chrome, whatever you have. We put in the address of some website and press enter. The browser starts loading the website. Data input. Fairies inside are working hard. Magic. Fixes. Well, here is our browser. Here we write btlr.com and press enter. What starts happening now? The very first thing is this. Through the internet, a request is sent, a comment. It is less important now how it goes through the internet, which is a separate theme worth of years of studying. A request is sent and gets into the server. The server processes this request. Depending on what it needs, it can go to and read some data from the database. Does it look like a cylinder? It should be a cylinder. The server sends a request to the database, reads something from it, builds a response. Through the internet, this response reaches the browser. Now this response is processed by the browser and is shown in the form of a web page. Now please start making some notes, because you might fail to keep it all in memory. I will give you a bit of terminology, it is really needed. This part, the process of sending the request, is done via the protocol HTTP, possibly S. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, S for secure. Though it is called a protocol for hypertext transfer, in fact not only text is transferred. What does the word hyper mean? It is over, above, beyond. It includes multimedia, images, etc. In the very beginning of the internet, it was text only. Now it is text and all the rest you have in the internet. S means secure, which means encrypted. We can see the difference in the browser. There will be an icon of a lock over there. And the address starts with HTTPS. This technology of data transfer is called HTTP or HTTPS. In today's reality, HTTP without S is almost out of use. According to recommendations and requirements of Google and other internet giants, everything must be encrypted. Everything that is sent through the internet must be ciphered, and in theory, all those who sit in the middle between the browser on our local computer and the remote server, somewhere there, all men in the middle, providers and the rest, they cannot see our content. But it's a theory and it can take long discussions. The process of data transfer consists of two lines, as you see. One goes there, the other comes back. The one that goes there is called a request, which means something we ask. The returning one is called a response. That is a reply. I'm not just saying this, you have to memorize the terms. They are used regularly and we will need them. The transport technology as HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. You can Google and read more about it. It's not a secret. Why did I draw the database as a cylinder? Because it is a standard symbol in the industry. Thus, we have a request and a response. When we send a request from the browser, it reaches the server. The server processes it, goes to the database or possibly to other files, or does something else, for example sends a new request to a different server. This scheme is scalable. Our server can send a request to another server, and that server to another one, and so on, and then chain-wise return the results. Processing of the server side is done in a thing called web server. One of many possible programming languages for the web server can be, for example, PHP. It can be also Java or whatever you like, C, .NET. We are examining a simple scheme. The languages I always mention are JavaScript and PHP. PHP is the language for processing on the server side. JavaScript is the language for processing in the browser. Often people tend to mix things up until some practical experience of programming is accumulated. What, when, where, and how? Which language? Initially, the web page is formed. Then a request is sent to the server. It is processed there by the server-side language. Response returns to the client side into the browser, where it is processed by JavaScript. An example. We have a registration form with some data input fields and OK button. I insert the data and click on this OK button and see an error message saying that the email address, for example, is incorrect. A question to you. Which language does it and where? In the HTML page. Right. It happens in the web page. But pay attention, HTML is not a programming language. It is a page markup language. HTML helps us create those elements, the input fields. We use JavaScript to validate whether fields are filled or whether they meet certain criteria. How can we validate an email address? The simplest rules. Well, it must be longer than two symbols, it must include @ and a dot, it has no spaces, right? And it has no percentage, no apostrophe, and only Latin letters, and some other conditions. How to validate a phone number? At least 6 symbols, no spaces, no letters. It has only numbers. Well, actually the letter P is allowed, but not important now. Such validations are worth doing on JavaScript level. They are done on the client side, before we start sending something to the server. On the server side, we will check whether this email address is already taken. It can be already registered by somebody else and is stored in our database. This check is done by PHP language. Who of you heard the phrase full stack developer? Some time ago, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, when the grass was greener and the trees were taller and life conditions were better, there were JavaScript developers and separate server-side developers, and absolutely different guys who write in HTML and style sheets. It was cool, all were happy, and there was no mess. Today, we do not live in that reality. Now we have the concept of a full stack developer, who is a developer for doing everything: HTML, JavaScript, and PHP. It is a challenge for people without much experience, and even for experienced developers, it is hard to switch between the languages. One person has to make a web page with all its HTML layouts of all the elements, to write the JavaScripts for all those validations, then to write a script for sending a request to the server. Then the same person has to prepare the server side and create their PHP code for getting something from the database and responding to the client side. All in one single head. Well, that's the reality. Life is life. Recently, it has become a clear tendency. One person keeps calm and carries on with both client and server sides. We still have the separation on backend and frontend. Of course, we have this separation, in theory. Your chances to get a job only as a front-end developer or only as a back-end developer are not high. This is front-end, this is back-end. Back-end is the server, something far away, there, in the back. Front-end is here, in front of our eyes, or as we sometimes say, on the face. Your chances to get a job only in the front-end or in the back-end are approaching to zero. That's the reality. Or your salary goes down. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to stay updated.